So this morning, they dragged Julian Assange out of the Ecuadorian embassy and arrested him. And they claimed that he had violated some kind of bail. It's all a ruse, it's all a big game, but it should cause us to rise up and object and to get after it, because it is not just one guy. It is a huge thing. In 1971, Daniel Ellsberg released the Pentagon Papers, and the New York Times was stopped from printing the matter, the Pentagon, what was known as the Pentagon Papers about the Vietnam War. And then the Washington Post picked it up, and eventually the Supreme Court ruled that freedom of speech requires that papers received by the newspapers from Ellsberg were part of the protection of free speech according to the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, adopted and approved on December 15th, 1791. And the First Amendment reads, "The First Amendment to the United States Constitution prevents Congress from making any law respecting an establishment of religion, prohibiting the free exercise of religion, or abridging freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the right to peaceably assemble, or to petition for a government redress of grievances." Here's the problem. If we have no right to find out, we have no right to know. All of the stuff that's going on among the so-called truther or alt-right or informed or red-pilled, advised, intelligent people that are on YouTube is contingent upon having source material. And if there is no source material, there will be no real news. And this is a huge nail in the coffin. Getting rid of Julian Assange is a critical piece for the whitewashers to hide and disaffect and disabuse and dissemble and discourage us in any way from knowing the truth. What we have here is a modern version of the New York Times. The WikiLeaks folks are our version of the New York Times and the Washington Post. If you ever thought they were good, this one is much better. And what Assange has said and consistently responded to is, we tell the truth, we impeccably follow through on what we know, and we do not source the materials. It is others who bring the materials to us. Daniel Ellsberg was the source of the Pentagon Papers. Probably Seth Rich is the source of much of the stuff that came out in 2016. And I want to remind you, and this is another nail in the coffin, and it is an indication of a nail in a coffin, I want to remind you that Donald Trump praised WikiLeaks for its disclosure of all of the Hillary releases. And he told us that he appreciated WikiLeaks for disclosing the source material. Now, we have spent the last 2.5 years discussing the fact that the Russians broke into it, that the Russians got there, that Guccifer 3 or whatever his name was were the source of it all. I watched James Clapper on this morning, the lying, thieving, good-for-nothing, worthless piece of crap that he is, telling us that, really WikiLeaks was a little bit different from the New York Times. And so what he tried to do was to distinguish, I'll let you watch this, he attempts to distinguish between the New York Times and WikiLeaks because the intelligence community got access to talking with the New York Times before they released, or to the Washington Post. Well, in fact, they did talk to them, but they did not dissuade the Washington Post from printing the Pentagon Papers. So what was the upshot of it? Did they arrest the CEO, the editor-in-chief of either newspaper as they'd done with Assange? No, of course not, because we would not have permitted it. So today, here we are letting another right, a fundamental right, a part of our Bill of Rights, slip into the dustbin. And I'm going to say to you, if we don't rise up and object to this, we are going to be spinning quickly into an age of total disinformation. We at least now have the gripping point of places like YouTube, which allow us to engage in discourse which is contrary to the mainstream media. This is another nail in the coffin to get rid of that. So this morning we had the release, and I may run this with you too. Lenin Moreno, who is the Ecuadorian president, said, oh gosh, Julian was not a good guy in there, and he wasn't doing exactly what we wanted, and he violated the general protocol for people seeking asylum, so we pulled the plug on him. Well, that's not it at all, and not only that, but they shut him down from communicating. They were doing full body searches for people that had to come and go, and full body searches for Julian going from one room to the next. They were making it more and more difficult, trying to push the envelope out. And so it has to lead us, and I'll run this slip by you, or at least give you access to it, for the Moreno Ecuadorian president announcement. But what it tells us is that the dark state, the deep state, the nasty folks, the bankers, the Zionists that are trying to run this entire world, that have fully closed in on owning most of the newspapers, Reuters, the AP, the major newspapers, and the globalist corporations, that they have squeezed on Moreno. They have told him that they will give him benefits and protect him if he lets Assange go, and then they have closed in on it. So over the past several months, and since I started here, I've attempted to say to you, the viewers, here is the news as I see it, and here is why we need to pay attention, how we need to know more, how we need to understand what's really happening in our world, and ultimately what it is that we are going to do about it. Because I'm going to tell you that if Trump allows Assange to be arrested, if Trump's administration gave the go-ahead, which it did, to the Brits and the Ecuadorians to pull Assange out, physically pull him out of the Ecuadorian embassy in London, then Trump is not our guy, and Trump is not doing anything for us. And I'm going to say to you in another message here shortly why I see Trump differently than I did last fall, and why it is time for us to put on the vests and go after it. After I did the neon vest business, and I attempted to arouse people to get in this country to the same place that the French at least were, with regard to the yellow vests, I got 300 or 400 people saying, yes, I'd like to help. And I will tell you, I am truly grateful for those folks that stepped forward, many of whom said, you know, I've got COPD, or I'm in an assisted living center, but by God, I'll show up. And I thank you for doing it. But 400 people won't get us to the next page. And what I decided when I looked at that was that we needed a cause célèbre. We needed some kind of major event that would cause people to say, no, they can't do this to us anymore. I'm going to say to you that the arrest of Julian Assange should be a moment when we say, no, you can't do anymore. You cannot take our fundamental rights away. If you're going to arrest Julian Assange, you better by damn well arrest the New York Times chief people and the Washington Post, and you better go after Forbes and a dozen others, which incidentally I'm going to give you a piece of sometime in the next couple of days. So it is time for us to step up, and I'm going to say to you one more time, put on the vest. And I'm also going to say to you that if any of these other channels express outrage at the arrest of Julian Assange, what I would say to you is ask them what they're going to do about it. Is this idle spin it news, or are they patriots who actually have a plan? Because just telling us about it doesn't help. It makes us all frilly about, frothed at the mouth about it, foamed up, but it doesn't get us anywhere as American citizens, folks. So what I would say to you is go to the other channels now and say, does the arrest of Assange infringe on our First Amendment right to freedom of the press? And if so, what import does it have to us as citizens to find out what's going to go on? And when is it going to impact your channel? And if you do something about it, what would you do? That's what I would say, is it's time to do something. It really truly is. We are past the point of it. And this is an indicator, and this is my final point, this is an indicator that the powers that be know that they need to take care of the loose ends. And Julian Assange is a very big loose end. Not only that, he is a marker for what is available to us as citizens and what will not be available to us as slaves. So I say to you, pay attention, look at this, take it seriously, give a thumbs up if you see fit. I am going to complain more because I have more to say, but I've hesitated to do it until I saw the whites of their eyes. And I can say to you now, I've seen the white of their eyes. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this is of some benefit to you. I will link both a Trump statement about liking Assange and WikiLeaks. There are a whole bunch of them on YouTube. I will also link you to the Lenin Moreno statement from the Ecuadorian president as to why he crapped out on Assange and why nobody else stepped up, in effect. So thank you so much for watching.